Welcome to the Impact Multiplier CEO podcast. If you're a chief executive or if you think like one and you want to create exponentially greater impact, then this show is for you. My name is Richard Medcalf, founder of Xquadrant. I coach some of the most successful and impressive CEOs and executive teams on the planet and help them achieve even more extraordinary results. Because no matter how successful you've been in the past, there's always a whole new level of impact available to you. So, if you're ready to play a bigger game than ever before, I invite you to join us and become an Impact Multiplier CEO. Graeme Strachan is the CEO of ViTL Solutions. He became a business owner by accident with a really interesting story. He was in a business and suddenly the opportunity was there within a week or so to actually take over the business, become a full owner and take it in a new direction. Get really into that story and find out about the mission that Graeme's on as he wants to create a business that's truly multi-generational, that can be passed from the founders or the owners to employees across multiple generations. So this is a really interesting conversation. We look at some of the ways that Graeme keeps himself on track, how he burns his bridges and paints himself into corners, how he recruits partners in a really interesting way. I think you'll find this story really interesting as he's built out a business that really serves his market very specifically. Enjoy this conversation with Graeme Strachan. Graeme, hi, it's great to see you today.
Thanks, Richard. I'm super excited, actually. I love this kind of thing.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to dive into, you're the founder and CEO of ViTL Solutions, which we'll get into what that's about. Yep. And I know that you've had an interesting story of how that business came to be. And I know that you've got quite an interesting vision for where you want to take the business. I'm looking to getting into that today. Mm-hmm. Why don't you start just by explaining a little bit about what is ViTL and how did a Scottish giant end up in Middle America?
Sure. So ViTL Solutions, well, first off, I'm one of three founders. So I want to correct that before I get in trouble from the other two. Yes, I'm the CEO, but I'm one of three founders. ViTL Solutions is a management consulting firm that specializes in services around mergers and acquisitions. So on the IT side, IT due diligence, and then post-deal IT separation or integration work. We help companies build or improve their project management offices as well, or transformation management offices, etc. That's called our XMO services. And then lastly, we help our clients select and implement solutions, software solutions. So those are the three main areas: mergers and acquisitions, XMO, and system selection and implementation.
Okay.
We're a smallish company. We're not enormous. But we do have quite a big footprint just because of the way that the company is designed and built. We work a lot with partners and independent contractors as well as our employee owners. And I know we'll want to dive into the the kind of business model and why we do it that way and why we have employee owners as opposed to just employees.
Right, got it. And where are you based?
Oh, sorry, yeah. So the company's based in Denver, Colorado. I personally am based up in Silverthorne, Colorado, next to all the fantastic ski resorts that we have here, and
the hard life.
You've always got to look in the silver lining of things. All this new work from home stuff definitely enables us to live and work closer to where we actually want to be. And for me, that's in the mountains. So
I need to ask you, Graeme, what's wrong with Aviemore, right?
I do remember driving up to Aviemore years and years ago, and you would see the cars coming the other way. You'd be like, oh no, it's rained out again. And the snow's been rained off the hill or whatever. So
yeah,
it's a little bit more snowshoe here.
Yeah. If people listening, Aviemore is where I learned to ski. It's a ski resort in Scotland. I spent a weekend there, and I learned in a blizzard, a very cold blizzard.
Yeah. I have nothing against Aviemore. The nice day, it's fantastic. But no, I left Scotland quite a few years ago. I started my career in back when it was Anderson Consulting, it is now Accenture, back in the late 90s, down in London. Met an American woman who's now my wife, We met in Paris on a project. Sounds very romantic, but if anyone's ever worked on a consulting project, it's not the most it's often not the most glamorous buildings you end up. And we were in a little town south of Paris, which wasn't very glamorous at all, and kind of windowless offices. That's where we met. So it's not quite as romantic as it sounds. And being sometimes not very aware of myself back then, I never one day even thought that I would move to America. I married an American woman without even really thinking about the possibility of moving to America. It wasn't like it was a dream or anything. But my wife is from Miami, from Florida, and at some point she wanted to move back to the States. And I thought, I could do that, but I don't want to go to Florida. So like two good management consultants, we drew up a list of
a spreadsheet.
Oh yeah, it was a big spreadsheet of things that we wanted to get out of wherever we were going to live, and it was a weighted scoring thing. Like she had her weighting on it, I had my weighting on it, and then we scored various cities around America against this spreadsheet. Denver came out on top, and in 2008 we moved to Denver and haven't looked back since. So the proof is in the pudding, right? It worked.
Yeah. So tell me about ViTL. Why did you decide to co-found this? Right. What's the story there?
We had, I would say it was a case of it was a case of making lemonade out of lemons, if I'm being honest with you. Myself and the other two founders worked at another consulting firm, which was primarily owned by one person. It was a single founder. He still owns the bulk of the company, a large majority of the company. The company was doing really well. At some stage, he had asked me to take over as CEO. We continued to do really well. But I don't think I realized there were probably some personal issues going on there. It certainly wasn't for me to dig into. And he decided he needed to be gone. And even I think having that ownership of the company and not being involved in the day-to-day running made it very difficult for him. So he decided that he didn't even have time to sell it. He wanted just to go away. So he decided to shut the company down. Not wanting our employees to have to go find new work, etc. We actually ended up buying the contracts from the old company. So we did an asset purchase agreement, bought those contracts, paying a percentage off the top for a certain amount of time, and we're able to offer employment to the vast majority of people who are at the other company. And so in a way, we lucked into it. Let's say we lucked into it. I'm not a big believer in luck. You make your own luck.
You make it happen. Yeah, you made it happen.
You make it happen, yeah.
You could have walked away and gone on another job or whatever, right? But you saw an opportunity.
Scary. Yeah, and it wasn't like we had this big dream to go found a company. The opportunity presented itself to us, and we jumped into it feet first. A little bit scary because we basically went to the bank and asked for a line of credit. We showed them our pro formas and everything and our projections, and in a 1-hour meeting, we walked out with a handshake for a $300,000 line of credit, which was between the three owners on our own personal properties, etc. Because the company's not founded at that point, so the only collateral is our own properties. So having a personal line to set up that company was a bit scary. However, we had contracts, so we knew fine well we'd be able to pay things back. But that's the only funding that we've ever had, and we paid that line off pretty quickly, and we were able to grow the company. The first 6 months or so was just, okay, let's get everything set up, let's run it like we were running before. And then that was about July 2017. At the end of the year, or in Q4, we'll do our strategic planning and we'll decide what it is we want to be when we grow up, right? What kind of company is it we're building? What do we want to achieve? What is it going to feel like to work here? What culture do we want? All of those questions. Because honestly, the setting up of the company, we did it in a weekend. And the whole thing took a week. It was crazy fast.
Right, yeah, because there was a transition to be made, right? You couldn't leave the customers kind of
we had to go speak to all our clients. Yeah, and it's interesting actually, and it was a good reminder for us that in the services world, so in professional services such as consulting and probably many others, it really is all about your people and how they serve your customers. Because we went to talk to our customers, and almost down to an individual, the conversation went along the lines of, hey, there's nothing to worry about. However, this old company is going away, there's a new company. And all of our clients said, well, I have the same team on Monday. From Friday to Monday, we said, absolutely. And they were like, well, I don't care what it's called. Because your team, the people that deliver for us, we love them. They're doing great work for us. As long as I get the same service and the same team, the same people, then that's fantastic. And that gave us quite a strong indication about some of the values and some of the focuses we needed to spend on the new company.
Got it. So let's fast forward all the way to now. I'm sure there's a whole journey from where you were until now.
Oh, yeah.
What I'm keen about in this season is to really understand what's the mission that you're on as a leader. Obviously, you're a bit of an accidental entrepreneur. You kind of ended up as a business owner. It wasn't your plan.
Absolutely.
You didn't even plan to be in the States. You ended up marrying somebody. I have the same story, right? I never planned to be in France for 20 years. And
right.
So how would you describe the mission that you're on now, as a business leader? What are you trying to create?
There's a few things. There's probably 2 or 3 things there. Our mission statement, I know that's not what you're asking about. Our mission statement as a company is we exist to help business leaders achieve their vision. And there's kind of 3 things we look at there. When we say business leader, obviously, number one, we're talking about our clients. The reason a consulting firm like us exists is to help them do something that they can't do on their own, or they haven't been able to do, that should tie to some kind of strategic plan or vision. So we exist to help business leaders achieve their vision. However, we also view our own employee owners as business leaders. So we also exist to help our employee owners achieve their own visions. And I'm not naive enough to think that in a small company like this, we can help all of our people achieve their visions within the confines of our company all of the time. So part of it, we have a mentor-mentee relationship model as well internally, is understanding what do our people want to do with their lives, with their careers, etc. And it's okay that sometimes we're a stepping stone to that. That's okay. As long as we can enable them to do so, we're still leading into our mission, right? As long as we can enable them to do that in some kind of genuine way, fantastic. And then the last one is we also see community leaders as business leaders as well. So how do we show up in the community, and how do we help, not-for-profits or other community leaders in primarily right now in Denver in the Front Range? How do we help them achieve their vision? So there's a lot rolled into that one little statement. But then personally, when we set up the company, and it was a little bit in reaction to how the previous company had folded, even down to the kind of brass tacks of the operating agreement, it's written in such a way that it's very difficult for one person to pull the company down, et cetera, et cetera. But we wanted more longevity, more opportunity for our own people. So we made it an employee-owned company, number one. Everybody has the opportunity to participate in the ownership. And the idea is actually it's a multi-generational company. But by that, I don't mean my own family, my own kids. It's not Strachan and Sons. I mean the people who work for us. We want to hire people who are interested in growing and developing this business, ViTL Solutions, into something bigger and better than I ever could, or our other founders ever could. So it's that old adage of hiring people who are smarter than you. But on top of that, giving them the opportunity and the line of sight to say, I can continue to collect ownership as I grow here. And then let's say, Graeme retires, or Jimmy or Woz or other 2 founders retire, that ownership gets rolled back into the businesses and is available for other people. So, when I eventually retire or win the lottery or get run over by a bus or whatever it is that, makes me not be in the company anymore, I would like to think that the people who step up, whether it's a smaller percentage, it should be at some point worth way more than my big percentage ever was. And having that kind of continuous thing and opportunities for people to grow and develop while serving our customers, our clients, that's what excites me. And
so I just say, I love the fact that you've built this ownership model into the business, because that does kind of put your money where your mouth is, right? It's easy for everyone to say we want to, give back to employees, we want to create opportunities, but in a sense, the ownership structure almost forces you to live that out at this point, right? Because it's baked in.
It's actually looking at the numbers right now. We have to, because of this, we have to do like an annual valuation, all that kind of stuff. Looking at some of the numbers right now, it is scary when I look at it, say, oh wow, if this person left and that person left, that's a lot of money we have to start paying people out. How do we make sure? Because this is, I call it as well, burning your boats. I like to kind of paint myself into a corner sometimes. It's like you say, put your money where your mouth is. I know that if we as a company underperform and do not have a good culture, don't have good employee engagement, etc., people will leave. Goodness, if they leave, we're going to have to shell out quite a lot of money to these employee owners to buy back their stuff. I'd better make sure as the CEO that I create a wonderful place for people to work so that they don't, and we all know people leave from time to time. You're never going to get zero attrition ever. But how do I make sure that because of the position we deliberately put ourselves in, we're not hemorrhaging money because people are leaving because it's not a great place to work. So I love, it sounds a bit weird, but I love painting myself into those corners so that I really need to think long and hard. It forces me to undertake certain actions that actually end up bolstering the firm.
It's interesting. I was thinking about a quote, I think I mentioned it on another episode recently, which was around from Jeff Bezos, who said, in the long term, investor requirements and customer requirements align, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's only in the short term that they feel that they diverge. And it's a bit the same thing, it's like if you do the right things, the right long-term things are going to benefit the employees, and they're going to benefit the business as a result. And that's where it all kind of makes sense.
It's I think this quote's been attributed to a few people, but I know that it's been attributed to Richard Branson as well. And I love this quote. If you look at, it's way before his time as well, I'm sure, but if you look after your people will look after your customers. So that's great to me. I'm like, absolutely. If we can make an environment with great culture, challenging work, and work that people want to turn up to and perform, they're going to be much happier at our client site. And if they're much happier delivering work for a client, they're going to do good work. And if they do good work, guess what? Our clients are going to buy more. And so it's building those virtuous cycles, right?
Yeah, something. So I mean, I love this. I love the fact that you have this. You call it the multi-generational approach, that you're actually trying to create a cycle where people can come up through the business, earn their way into it, and then exit at the right time, and other people can come through. And I think it's a really fascinating thing that you've built there. And then this burning the boat strategy is a way to almost say, for me, it's like, you create a mechanism that then almost creates the right behaviors, forces the right behaviors.
And it forces me, the right behaviors in me.
In you,
right.
Absolutely. And I think that's fantastic. So at the moment, what would you say, like, as you look at that vision and everything that you're focusing on, what energizes and excites you, and what drains you and slows you down, as a CEO in this business?
So it's funny, my original degree is in product design engineering. So I've got a master's degree in product design engineering. Sounds like it's got nothing to do with management consulting. And I actually, just like we talked about earlier, kind of accidentally stumbled into Accenture, into management consulting in the first place. But what really energizes me now, and it ties all the way back to my original degree, being the CEO is very similar to product design in one respect. I'm building a company. I'm building a culture. I'm building a client base. I'm not building a product, but the same thought process has to go into it. What is the voice of the customer, whether that's our clients or our people or the local community? What are their needs? How can I build a company that satisfies those needs? And so for me, it's almost like coming full circle. I did my degree, and then went into something very different, and actually quite difficult for me. I must admit, the whole management consulting thing, be very structured, project and program management. And my background's like Lean Six Sigma. So we talk about structure and data and being precise. Whereas my natural behavior is kind of seat of the pants. So you've got this weird conflict between seat of the pants, wanting to do big vision stuff, but having to be in the details, to then come full circle to be in a seat now where I get to design and build this organization, this living, breathing organization that achieves something, energizes me no end. There are, however, because nothing's perfect, some areas that definitely do take energy away. We are I would say, culture first organization. Everything that we do, every conversation we have flows through. You'll hear us talk about our 4 culture tenets. It's kind of like our company values, right? You'll hear us talk about those things. So for us, we always have a big focus on culture. One of the things that takes energy away from me, can sap me a little bit. I know we've had a couple of occasions where, I mentioned before, we do partner with other companies to go into bigger projects, etc. We've had a couple of occasions where we've definitely, I'd say, missed a trick or two when determining who best to work with, and really learned a hard lesson about it's not just about the skills that they can bring, it's about the combination of the 2 companies' cultures working together. And, we had a very, very large project recently for us. It's enormous, working with a partner company who just did not share those values, and having to be firefighting because of strained relationships due to lack of culture integration or similarities. They just didn't have the same values that we did. And it was exacerbating, because in my mind, and, I'm not always right, but you like to think we've built this culture because it's the right thing to do, and it's this amazing way of working. When someone doesn't quite do it, it baffles me as to why they don't see things the way we do. Clearly that's not right. I mean, I'm sure they have the same conversations on their side. Why can't ViTL do things the way we do? That was draining.
It's Richard here with just a quick interlude. If you're serious about multiplying your impact, I have a free resource that you won't want to miss. I've put together a short email course called Exponential Leadership Principles. In it, I set out how you can use the same strategies as some of the world's top leaders to get out of incremental progress and achieve breakthrough results. Be prepared to have your current thinking challenged and to learn some very new ways of leading. If you're interested in following along, simply sign up at xquadrant.com/go/exponential. And now back to the conversation. And what would you recommend? Like, how would you solve that problem next time? How would you actually try to get under the skin? It's quite hard from the outside.
It is, but a little bit more care and time and attention, to the same degree that we perform employee interviews, is actually stepping through that with the client. We use all sorts of things, including predictive index, which is like a behavior assessment thing, to determine what kind of profiles people have. We don't say no to someone because of a profile. It helps us understand who they are, and how to manage people. But it would be the same for a client. It doesn't mean because they don't have the same values as us, or the same, company values written down, or anything, that we wouldn't work with them. It just means we have to understand how to manage things differently. So it's not a yes/no thing. It just means, hey, if we tend to work this way and they tend to work that way, what's the bridge in the middle that enables us to work together? And how can we manage that better? So it's not necessarily to say I wouldn't work with that partner. If it was to do it again, it would be to help us manage it better. And so doing your homework, doing your diligence.
It'd be interesting, wouldn't it, to come up with a few key use cases on those partnerships, to ask how they would want to work, because I think that's when the values come off the page, right? Because all the values look good on the paper, right? But actually, how would you manage this situation or this situation? If there was this choice, it's always in those hard choices that values really come out, doesn't it?
Well, we did actually build, as a result of that, some high-performing team tools that we run through now at the beginning of projects like that. So making sure that not as company to company, but as team to team. So if we're doing the management layer and they're doing the technology heavy lifting, okay, well, let's all get in a room and understand what the project is about. What's the vision of the project? How do we need to show up as a team? What are our team values? And then checking in on an ongoing basis to say, hey, these are the 4 or 5 or 6 things we said our team values. Are we living them? How are we doing? And if not, what do we need to change? So it's all about expectation setting.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, great. So perhaps I'm just, for sake of time, let's move on. I'm always interested in these little quick fire questions that we have these days. Okay. To dive into, what feeds you as a leader. So, what's a favorite quote that you live by, or you apply in your leadership, or you find is distinctive for you?
Well, I already mentioned the one about looking after your employees. Your employees look after your customers. So I'll think of something different. This is a learned thing for me. I did say earlier it was kind of seat of the pants person, but and this is a bit of a classic one, probably, but Sun Tzu. Every battle is won before it's fought. And I say that that's a learned thing for me, because as a naturally more big picture, seat of the pants kind of guy, that to me, it's a good reminder for me that no. Every time we start a piece of work, or every time I do something internally, like, what's the outcome we're trying to achieve? What is the plan to get there? What happens if things go wrong? Or just the example I gave about the teams. How do these two teams work together? Having a plan, having defined goals and a plan to get there will always help us be much more successful than just my regular go for it approach.
Yeah. It's such a great point. A lot of leaders, with putting me included, we want to get off our, when we have an idea, we want to go for it fast and start moving. And just taking that time to really slow down and articulate what it is we're doing and why, and what are the key steps and so forth. It's
the less, I guess, the less classy way of saying that is the 6 Ps. Perfect planning prevents piss poor performance.
There we go.
Yes. Sun Tzu's probably said it a bit better.
Yeah, will you go for that one? It sounds more intellectual. What about a favorite app? Is there an app that you use that makes you particularly productive, or that you find gets you through the day?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a productivity junkie. I really, really am. And one of the things it's actually one of the things I think I'm pretty good at. If you look at my calendar, it's probably only about 50% full. One of my pet peeves is, people, and it's like, oh, they're double and triple booked all the time. I'm like, well, you don't know how to delegate or manage your time then. But one of the things that I found is using apps on my phone. I've used all sorts of productivity apps. The problem with apps on the phone, your phone is a time sink, or can be a time sink if you're not careful. And I am very easily distracted. So it's not an app as such. I've actually shied away from productivity apps on my phone now, because every time I pick it up, I get sucked into other things, which defeats the point.
Yeah.
I actually recently got, it's actually a physical clock called Time Timer. And it's, you can buy an 8-inch clock, a 12-inch clock. It's a pretty big clock. And it has it's an analog clock with a kind of countdown timer from 60 to 0. And it will show red for your remaining time, and it goes down, and it's visible, and it's in front of you. And so when it's in front of me, I can say, well, this task will take me 45 minutes. I adjust it to 45, hit start. And then I've got this visual in front of me that is shrinking, that shows me exactly how much time I have left. So it's not an app as such. It's a physical product, but it is a productivity tool that I use to great effect. Yeah.
I love it. That's fantastic. I love all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
time timer. It's a great name.
It's a really good
time timer. What's a book that's really influenced you?
Trying to think of a book as well that isn't very obvious or cliche. It's funny. I think probably because of my product design background and because of my move into consulting, having to very clearly and succinctly communicate with clients, and being a very visual thinker person. Probably Edward Tufte's The Visual Display of Quantitative Information it's kind of a seminal book around data and how you present data.
Right. Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, being a management consultant, our clients often want us to be brief, be bright, and be gone. So having the ability to communicate large quantities of data very succinctly into findings is incredibly useful. And although it's kind of an old school book, I mean, some of the diagrams are from Napoleon's march to Russia and back. That's one of the best, by the way. If you have never, ever seen the graphic for Napoleon's march to Moscow and back, best piece of information display ever. But all of those things give you ideas about how to present data succinctly. Right.
Yeah, it's great. I've seen that one. I've seen another similar book, and they're really quite interesting. Yeah, it's
up there.
Yeah, I can just see it. Yeah. So okay, visual display of quantitative information. Thank you. What advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
That is suitable for this podcast. This might sound a strange start into it, but understanding compound interest and applying it wherever you can. And I don't just mean in investments. I mean, absolutely. I probably back in my 20s should have put a lot more into my pension accounts or 401ks, etc. However, look for other areas in your life where you can invest time and energy that will give you that kind of compound return. So relationships, your own health and well-being, and your learning and development, because those things, I liken them to compound interest, right? Those things that I learn over time, they become more valuable to me. As the relationships is a great example. Your relationship can grow exponentially, and as a consultant, when running a company, business development is hugely important to us. So, had I known years ago, I would have probably spent a lot more time, and not in in a genuine way, investing in relationships in a genuine way. But I like to tie things back to that concept of compounding interest over time.
Yeah, building momentum. Yeah, I mean, I think in my own life, I think one of my professional regrets is that when I was in big corporate at Cisco, I didn't attend enough to all the relationships because there's so much going on around me. It's easy just to work within your small little section.
Exactly.
And that was a classic moment of, sometimes what got me here isn't going to get me to the next level. And, in consulting, I had a great career. And then I think I just let that slide a little bit. And it's a shame. So I think you're right. I mean, front load relationships, front load work, front load knowledge is whatever you can is great.
That's right. Exactly.
The last quick question is really another one. As you might know, or if you do know, it was Laurie Jones who referred you to me, saying that you'd be a great guest for the podcast. We had Laurie on a few months ago, and many of our guests do come from referrals. So I'm always keen to know, who inspires you? Who's an impactful chief executive who you've worked with, or as a client, or as a boss, or as a manager, or somebody in your network, who you think might be, who inspires you and might be a great guest for this kind of show.
I can think, so it's not a client, and it's not someone I've ever worked with. It's someone I grew up with. And so his name is Brian Woods. And Brian started he started out in, he was a rep for spirits companies. I think he worked at Diageo, so he ended up setting up his own business. Because he's a friend, we never actually talk that much about business, and I'm always very, very intrigued how he's managed to do what it is that he has done, because he has built and sold, now does a lot of consulting. And honestly, it's probably for nothing more than my own personal inquisitiveness, because whenever I'm home in Scotland, we tend to go to the pub and hang out. We don't talk shop. So I'd love to hear him on a podcast talking about his business and
real
how
story.
He has had the success that he has. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. Finally, this is one of my favorite. It's probably my favorite question.
Okay.
No matter how much we've achieved, there's always a next level to get to. So where do you want ViTL to go as a business? What's the next level for that company?
The next level for that company is quite honestly with you, probably after I'm gone. Because, and it goes back to talking about hiring that next generation of people to take over. Like you said, what got me here won't get me there. And I think that's the same for the business. What got the business here probably won't get it there. I can paint that picture of where we think there can be. I can guarantee I'm going to have a few moments that I go, oh, can I do that? Am I capable of that? Or do I need to look to these other people that we have hired and brought up to achieve those next things? And, there are other things outside of work that I want to do as well. I'm not talking anything imminent, but I don't look at it necessarily as what's this next for the company, what's next for the company after I'm gone, what's next for my life. And that may or may not be in what we do now.
Right.
And so honestly, a lot of my time, it links back to the productivity thing as well. A lot of my focus these days is on how can I free up time and change the way that I work to do more of what I love doing. So, designing and developing this company is one thing, but I have a teenage family. My wife loves to travel. My parents are at home in Scotland. So how can I have my cake and eat it? How can I continue as far as I can grow and develop this company, but bring more joy into my life by working remotely, or bringing up other people to take on other pieces of the business, or, just put my foot down and say, actually, you know what? No, today bad example, but today I'm going to go snowboarding, which I'm very, very bad at.
It's interesting. You've answered my other question, which was what
Uh-huh.
will you personally need to do differently to multiply your own impact? And we're really getting onto
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah,
there.
yeah.
What's really interesting, and you said freeing yourself up, right?
Mhm.
I'm writing a book. In fact, I've written it. I was just with the editor today.
Oh,
It's
excellent.
about freeing yourself up for strategic activity, right, for the
I
next
will be
level.
buying that
And
book.
it's always that shift. I just see it in all
Yeah,
my clients. It's always the shift. And bizarrely, or counterintuitively, it's what you said. It's actually, I think it comes from doing less. I've said it many times on podcasts. I have a little snail on my desk. You can probably see it there.
oh, cool.
I
Yeah.
have a little snail to remind me to slow down, to speed up. And
Hmm.
what happens is we build our careers by saying yes to everything,
Just
by getting into
frantic.
opportunities, by taking on, and by learning, and by just being in all the action. And it gets to a stage where actually we don't need all that. Actually, it's about it's the critical few things. It's
That's right.
moving changing this. What's the one phone call that can make all the difference? What's the one
Hmm.
thing you need to change in the business that's gonna release
Have the
everything
biggest
else,
impact. That's
right?
right.
And
Yeah.
and and it's hard because we get used to the adrenaline and the sense of being needed and feel guilty. Today I didn't have actually it was a busy day for me today, but I went and read a book, and it was literally I probably spent, it was not long, like 20 minutes, but even after the first 5 minutes, I was feeling guilty,
Yeah.
at
That's
a
the
level
biggest thing. Yeah.
because it's
It's
like
the
it's
guilt.
the middle of the day, and I got all these things I could be doing, and I'm reading a book. Um, but
Yeah.
actually,
It's
that's where you get insight. That's where you
a hundred
join new
percent.
dots.
We're so programmed to have to, it's like you're more successful if you work more hours and all this
Mm.
silliness, quite frankly. And yeah, I find it difficult. That's why I was joking about, snowboarding or, just taking some time. Just today, I'm looking out my window. It snowed about 6 inches. Ideally, I should strap my snowboard on and go up, but I can't because I'm rooted here because I would feel guilty in doing it. However, I know that if I'm out in my own snowboarding as a CEO, as the person in charge of the vision of the company, I need
Yeah.
clarity of thought, and I can't often do
Mm.
that. Emails come in, phone calls happen, meetings happen. You need that headspace, but overcoming the guilt is the
Yeah.
single hardest part because we're so wired. We're so
Yeah.
wired in the Western world just to like,
Always be doing. Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, on that note, I'm going to stop it there so you can go snowboarding. It's
I'm
been
just going to go back to work.
Hey, Graeme, it's been great speaking with you. I've really enjoyed hearing about that founding story, how you were able to, where you became an accidental business owner, and then your strategy of painting yourselves in the corners to make yourself do the right things, to build this employee-owned business that's actually got the potential to kind of continue and multiply across generations as new people come in and do that. And I'm probably going to get myself a timer. And it's been a great discussion. So thank you kind of for your warmth and for your insights.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. I say at the beginning, I always love these things. And honestly, it's because I think I learn probably more about myself than people learn listening to the podcast. I love doing that. It's not always 100% altruistic. I love it because I do learn as well myself.
Perfect. Well,
thank you.
Thanks so much and stay in touch.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Now let's talk about you. When you're in top leadership, when you're in the biggest role of your career, who supports you at a deep level as you lead others? Who helps you multiply your impact and get to the next level? If you're ready to learn more about our content, our coaching and our community, then visit us at xquadrant.com.